the illusion of choice. As consumers, we operate under a comforting delusion. We believe we have the power to vote with our wallets. We believe that the free market is a democracy, that if we disagree with the company's practices, we can simply choose a competitor. We think we can cancel the subscription. We can shop locally. We can decide to opt out of the machine. But what if I told you that in the modern economy, that choice has become an illusion? Our team has spent the last week conducting a forensic audit of the digital economy. We didn't just look at where you shop. We looked at the invisible infrastructure underneath where you shop. We tracked the flow of every dollar spent during a typical hour on the internet. What we found was startling. Even when you actively try to avoid Amazon, even when you support a small, independent business, even when you use a government service to pay your taxes, a portion of your money is still flowing back to one single entity. We aren't here to tell you Amazon is evil. That is too simple. And frankly, it misses the point. The system isn't evil. It is efficient. We are here to show you that Amazon is no longer just a store. It has become a public utility, like water or electricity, but one that is privately owned, unregulated, and structurally inescapable. My goal today is to give you the blueprints of this system. We are going to deconstruct the mechanism, look at the historical precedent that predicted this exact moment, and explain why you cannot opt out. This is the macro edit, the context, the architect, and the blueprint. To understand why this monopoly is so difficult to escape, we cannot just look at Jeff Bezos. We have to look at the original architect of this business model. We have to go back to 1870. In 1870, a 31-year-old man in Cleveland, Ohio, controlled just 4% of America's oil refining capacity. He was a bookkeeper by trade, and when he looked at the oil industry, he didn't see opportunity. He saw chaos. He saw wildly fluctuating prices. He saw waste. He saw competition as a sin. His name was John D. Rockefeller. By 1880, just 10 years later, he controlled 90% of American oil. How did he do it? He didn't just sell oil. He realized that if he only controlled the final product, he was vulnerable. So he decided to control the rails, the barrels, and the pipelines. He bought the forests to make his own barrels for 15 cents, while his competitors paid 25 cents. He bought the tank cars and the warehouses. He built a system where his competitors were actually his customers. Jeff Bezos is the modern heir to this blueprint. But to understand the ruthlessness of the Amazon machine, you have to understand the two men living inside Jeff Bezos' head. On one side, you have the quant. Before Amazon, Bezos wasn't a retailer. He was a senior vice president at D.E. Shaw, one of the most secretive and mathematical hedge funds in the world. He didn't start Amazon because he loved books. He started it because he saw a single statistic. Internet usage was growing at 2,300% a year. He didn't see a store. He saw an arbitrage opportunity. This is why Amazon is obsessed with metrics, not people. It is a hedge fund algorithm, wrapped in cardboard boxes. On the other side, you have the cowboy. Bezos spent his childhood summers on his grandfather's ranch in Texas, repairing Caterpillar tractors and laying pipe. His grandfather, Lawrence Gies, wasn't just a rancher. He was a director at the Atomic Energy Commission and worked for the agency that invented the Internet, ARPA. This is the DNA of the monopoly. The quant gives him the data to crush competitors with mathematical precision. The cowboy gives him the libertarian instinct to build his own infrastructure, his own roads, his own laws, his own space program, completely independent of the government. Rockefeller believed God chose him. Bezos believes the math chose him. And that makes him even harder to negotiate with. Most of us still think of Amazon as a retailer, a place where we buy books or batteries. But our research shows that Jeff Bezos realized very early on that retail is a difficult, low-margin business. It is messy. You have to deal with returns, broken items, and picky customers. So, he made a strategic decision to stop just selling products and start selling infrastructure. He applied the Rockefeller method of vertical integration. He effectively built the roads and the power grid of 21st century commerce. There is a famous internal directive from 2002 called the API Mandate. It forced every internal team at Amazon to build their tools in a way that they could be rented out to the public. This decision turned Amazon into a set of building blocks. 1. The logistics block, the trucks, the warehouses, and the delivery drivers. 2. The digital block, the servers, the databases, and the cloud computing. This positioned Amazon as a gatekeeper. Today, if a small business wants to reach customers, or if a startup wants to launch an app, they almost have to use Amazon's infrastructure to do it. We have identified 5 hidden taxes, invisible costs that are embedded in the products and services you use every day. These are the mechanisms that trap you in unwittingly and make their business ecosystem inescapable. Hidden tax. Number 1, the connectivity tax. Let's look at the first hidden tax. The connectivity tax. This is the most pervasive cost, and it's one you pay without ever seeing an Amazon logo. This is Amazon Web Services, or AWS. Most people think of Amazon as the cardboard box on their doorstep. But in reality, Amazon is a cloud computing company that has a gift shop attached to it. Our audit confirms that Amazon Web Services powers a massive percentage of the entire cloud infrastructure of the world. While Amazon started as an online bookstore, AWS now generates $90 billion in annual revenue. That is more than Amazon's entire retail profit. Here is how the tax works. When you watch a movie on Netflix, a portion of your subscription fee goes to Amazon for hosting. When you use Zoom for work, Amazon is powering that connection. Even when you access certain government portals, your tax dollars are paying for Amazon's cloud. This means that Amazon has effectively become the landlord of the internet. Rockefeller controlled the refineries and the railroads. Bezos controls the servers and the bandwidth. This is the ultimate hedging strategy. It is brilliant, and it is terrifying. If Amazon retail fails, Bezos still wins, because he owns the servers that the competitors run on. If you buy from a Shopify store to avoid Amazon, that Shopify store is likely hosted on AWS. You are paying the Bezos tax every time you connect to the internet. You cannot boycott the electricity grid, and you cannot boycott AWS. Hidden tax number 2, the logistics tax. This leads us to the second mechanism of control, the logistics tax. This vector impacts the small businesses in our community, and it is a direct copy of Rockefeller's Cleveland massacre strategy. In 1872, Rockefeller told his competitors, "Sell to me, or I will crush you." He used his control of the railroads to make shipping impossible for anyone else. Bezos has done the same thing with Prime. We often hear about the Prime badge as a convenience for shoppers, but for sellers, it functions more like a visa, a mandatory passport to access the American economy. Our analysis of seller data shows that products with the Prime badge see a massive sales lift. But to get that badge, independent businesses are forced to use fulfillment by Amazon. They must ship their inventory to Amazon's warehouses. They must use Amazon's trucks. They must play by Amazon's rules. This is classic vertical integration. Amazon owns the warehouses, the logistics network, the delivery trucks, and the payment processing. This creates a dilemma. To serve you, the customer, the small business must surrender control to Amazon. If they don't, they become invisible in search results. If they do, they face rising fees and strict control over their inventory. This effectively nationalizes the logistics of small business into one private network. It limits the ability of independent brands to build their own relationships with you. Hidden tax number 3, the rent on the shelf, or the advertising tax. And then there is a new tax emerging, one that is growing faster than retail or cloud computing. This is the pay-to-play tax. 10 years ago, if you made the best product and got the best reviews, you floated to the top of Amazon's search results. The invisible hand rewarded quality. Today, that meritocracy is dead. Our audit revealed that on a standard Amazon search page, the first 3 to 4 rows of results are often entirely sponsored listings. If you are a small business, you can no longer just pay the logistics tax and the commission tax. You now have to pay an advertising tax just to be visible on the shelf you are already paying to be on. Amazon's advertising division now generates over $40 billion a year. That is essentially pure profit. Think about the genius of this trap. Amazon forces sellers to compete against each other for ad space, driving up the cost of customer acquisition. The sellers work harder, their margins get thinner, and Amazon collects the rent. It is the digital equivalent of a feudal lord, charging you to enter the market, charging you to set up your stall, and then charging you again to shout loud enough for anyone to hear you. I want to pause the audit here and turn it over to you. We can look at the charts, but the real data comes from the ground. If you are a business owner selling on this platform, is this your reality? Have you seen your ad costs spike while your organic reach vanishes? Drop a comment below with your experience. We are building a dossier on these hidden taxes, and your testimony is a data point that Amazon's annual report will never show. Let's get the real story on the record. Hidden tax number 4, the innovation tax. But it gets worse. Once you are in the system, you face the 4th tax, the innovation tax. This is perhaps the most concerning finding for the long-term health of our economy. Because Amazon processes millions of transactions, they possess what economists call perfect information. They know exactly what you are buying and at what price. We have documented a pattern known as the fast follow. When independent entrepreneurs identify a new trend, say, a specific type of ergonomic office chair, Amazon's algorithms can spot that success instantly. Historically, we have seen Amazon launch their own Amazon Basics version of these trending products, often priced lower than the original. Amazon uses data from third-party sellers to identify successful products, creates Amazon Basics versions, and promotes them above the original search results. This is the modern version of Rockefeller's price war. In the 1870s, Rockefeller would drop the price of kerosene below cost to bleed his competitors to death. Once they went bankrupt, he bought their assets for pennies. Amazon does this digitally because they own the marketplace. They can position their version at the top of the search results. They use the data provided by the sellers to compete against the sellers. This discourages innovation. If a small creator knows their idea can be replicated and undercut by the platform host, they are less likely to take the risk. This ultimately limits the variety and quality of products available to you. To understand how violent this innovation tax really is, we don't have to guess. We can look at the corpse of Quidsy, the parent company of Diapers.com. In 2009, Diapers.com was a rising star. They offered free shipping on diapers and had loyal customers. Bezos saw them not as a competitor, but as a leak in his system. He sent a team to acquire them. The founders refused. So, Bezos initiated a modern price war. Amazon slashed the price of diapers by 30%. They started losing money on every single pack of diapers they sold. But it wasn't enough. Amazon's algorithms then monitored Diapers.com's prices in real time. Every time Diapers.com lowered their price to survive, Amazon's bots lowered theirs even further. It is estimated that Amazon was losing $100 million a quarter in the diaper category just to bleed this one company dry. This is the Rockefeller playbook, page for page. In the 1870s, Rockefeller sold kerosene below cost in one specific city to bankrupt a local refinery, while raising prices elsewhere to subsidize the war. Diapers.com couldn't last. In 2010, the founders surrendered and sold to Amazon. Bezos bought the company, shut down the competition, and, you guessed it, the price of diapers went back up. This isn't free market competition. This is using a war chest to suffocate innovation in the cradle. Hidden tax number 5, the liquidity tax. And finally, we have to look at the money itself, the liquidity tax. This is the financial engine that explains why Amazon has infinite money, while other retailers struggle to keep the lights on. It is a concept called negative working capital. Let me explain this simply. If I run a local hardware store, I have to buy a hammer from a supplier for $5. I pay the supplier today. That hammer sits on my shelf for a month. Then, you walk in and buy it for $10. I was out of cash for that month. I had to pay the supplier before I got paid by you. That gap is expensive. It limits how fast I can grow. Amazon doesn't do that. When you buy an item on Amazon, your money is transferred instantly. You pay them $10 today. However, standard terms often allow Amazon to pay their suppliers, the people who actually made the product, up to 60 days later. Do you see what happened? Amazon holds your cash for 2 full months before they pay the bill. They have billions of dollars in their bank account that technically belongs to their suppliers, but money is fungible. While it is sitting there, they can use it. They use it to build more warehouses. They use it to launch satellites. They use it to acquire Whole Foods or MGM Studios. In essence, the suppliers are providing interest-free loans to one of the wealthiest companies on Earth. This creates an uneven playing field where the platform can grow at a velocity that no independent retailer can match. The breakup paradox. Now, you might be thinking, why doesn't the government just break them up? This is where the history of Standard Oil reveals the most terrifying truth of all. It is what I call the breakup paradox. In 1911, the Supreme Court ruled that Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly and ordered it broken up into 34 separate companies. This should have been the end of Rockefeller's dominance, but it wasn't. It was the beginning of his greatest wealth expansion. When Standard Oil was broken up, Rockefeller still owned shares in all 34 companies. As these new companies, Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, were forced to compete, they became more efficient, and their stock prices soared. Rockefeller's wealth tripled after the breakup. He became the richest man in modern history, precisely because the government tried to destroy him. If we break up Amazon today, the same thing will likely happen. If you force Amazon to spin off AWS, you create a standalone cloud computing company worth potentially $1 trillion. If you spin off the logistics network, you create the largest shipping company in America. Jeff Bezos and the shareholders still win. The pieces are worth more than the whole. This is why the system is so robust. It is designed to survive regulation. Rockefeller invented the trust structure to evade state laws. Bezos invented the ecosystem to evade antitrust laws. The trust was a legal innovation. The ecosystem is a technological one, but the result is the same. A hydra that grows 2 heads for every one you cut off, but the legal structure is only half the weapon. The other half is the operational model itself. Corporate strategists often praise Bezos for his famous flywheel sketch, a diagram he drew on a napkin that outlines Amazon's virtuous cycle. It goes like this. Lower cost structure leads to lower prices. Lower prices lead to better customer experience. Better experience drives traffic. Traffic attracts sellers. Sellers increase selection. And increased selection drives the cost structure down even further. It sounds beautiful. A perpetual motion machine of value. But if you look at that diagram through the lens of a forensic auditor, it doesn't look like a flywheel. It looks like a gravity well. A flywheel spins to create energy. A gravity well spins to pull things in. The brilliance of the model is that every participant in the economy, every shopper, every seller, every delivery driver, is adding mass to the center. As a shopper, your Prime subscription creates data. That data trains the algorithm. The algorithm creates efficiency. The efficiency lowers prices. The lower prices kill the local competitor. The dead competitor drives more shoppers to Amazon. This is why the negative working capital we discussed earlier is so lethal. Amazon has a cash conversion cycle of roughly negative 20 days. This means they get your money 20 days before they pay for the product. They are operating with a permanent, interest-free float provided by the very suppliers they are squeezing. They aren't just outcompeting the market. They are using the market's own energy to compress it into a singularity. This is exactly why we built the macro edit. Most financial news tells you what happened today. We are here to explain how the machine actually works, from 1870 to 2025. We are going to be deconstructing a different sector of the economy in every briefing. If you want to understand the architecture of the system, and not just the noise, make sure you are subscribed and have notifications on. You cannot navigate a map you cannot see. We are here to draw the map. The Benevolent Dictator. This brings us to the psychological masterstroke of the Rockefeller blueprint, the efficiency trap. Rockefeller once said that competition is a sin. He believed it was wasteful. He believed that consolidation was righteous because it created efficiency. And we must admit, the system is efficient. Standard Oil dropped the price of kerosene from 58 cents to 8 cents. That wasn't exploitation. That was an 86% price reduction for the working class. Amazon delivers products in 2 days. Google answers questions in seconds. The system delivers massive value to the consumer. This is the bargain we have made. We have traded our economic agency for convenience. We have accepted a benevolent dictator because the dictator gives us cheap shipping and low prices. But the cost is hidden. The cost is the destruction of Main Street. The cost is the innovation tax on new ideas. The cost is the transfer of wealth from the many to the few. The average American spends $4,000 per year on gasoline, $3,000 on Amazon, and $4,200 on technology services. That is over $13,000 per year flowing to companies using the Rockefeller playbook. Over a lifetime, that is $660,000 of wealth transfer from you to the monopoly, the solution, the equity hedge. So, how do we respond? Anger isn't a strategy. Knowledge is. We cannot dismantle this infrastructure overnight, but we can change how we interact with it. Number 1, the equity hedge strategy. We need to shift our mindset from consumer to owner. If we are going to live in a world powered by this infrastructure, we should consider participating in its value creation. If the system extracts wealth from everyone and concentrates it, own the companies that do the extracting. For many, this means owning a piece of the infrastructure to offset the costs we pay as consumers. Rockefeller owned Standard Oil while everyone else bought its products. You can do the same, proportionally. Number 2, seek identity over commodity. As consumers, we can make a conscious effort to buy things that cannot be automated. Support brands that offer genuine craftsmanship, deep community, and direct relationships. Amazon excels at moving commodities. It struggles with human connection. That is where our power lies. If a business depends on being the cheapest or the fastest, it is already dead. Number 3, recognize the reality. The most important step is simply acknowledging the map. We need to stop pretending that boycotts are a silver bullet. Instead, we must advocate for fair digital policies and transparency. The system is vertical integration, horizontal consolidation, and regulatory capture. It started with Standard Oil, and now it dominates every sector of the economy. The system isn't designed to be fought. It is designed to be invisible until you are already trapped. But now, you have the blueprint. I'll see you in the next edit.